So let's talk about balance, equanimity, and being present. I was trading this week and these thoughts were going through my mind as I was trading. I was thinking, what is it that kept me from this relatively new success that I'm experiencing since early 2016? Why am I consistently able to grind out a profit over time, whereas I spent the last 9 years not getting anywhere in my trading? And I thought about it, and what I came up with is not the analytical edge. There are two components to your edge, and I've written about this in a blog post called You and Your Edge. If you go over to the onlythemomo blogspot.it, I think. In any case, it's in the description box. If you go to the blog and use the search bar on the right of the blog, about midway down the page there's a search bar. If you put You and Your Edge, you'll see this post. And there's an analytical edge and there's an emotional edge. So you have IQ, which is intelligence quotient, then you have EQ, which is emotional quotient, I believe it stands for. In any case, the analytical edge is like if you're going to use a Head and Shoulders or pin bar, or hammer, shooting star, whatever your method is, tick chart, that's on the chart. That's what everyone can see and everyone can learn, in my opinion, relatively quickly. And then you have the emotional quotient, the analytical, the emotional variance, the emotional edge. And that's the one that I think 99.9%, that's the thing that lets down 99.9% of traders. It's the lack of balance. And what do I mean by this? First, let's take a look at this quote by Rudyard Kipling, I believe is how you pronounce it. If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters, and notice how you use the word imposters for both triumph and disaster. If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same, and then it continues on. You can look up that poem, it's called If by Rudyard Kipling. What does this mean? It means that being overly high or experiencing good in can also how can I put this? Experiencing something that's good can set you up for complacency, so that when you do experience something that's bad, it's even more intense than it would have been if you went into it with no expectations. And this again is going back to meditation. Every meditation practice is centered on the fact that we shouldn't be trying to cling to pleasure, and we shouldn't be trying to push away from pain. We should treat pleasure and pain as exactly what they are, which is identical on a synapse level. The same sensation that causes pain causes pleasure. It's just the interpretation by the brain. So we have to relabel or do away with labels altogether. And don't look at losing trades as a painful event, and don't look at winning trades as a pleasurable event. And then we're free to do our analysis and not try to run away from something or run towards something. So in the next slide, I have 2010. I backtested the CL method. This is an example of the cycle that I was in for a good, the best part of the 9 years before I became profitable. I made, and bear in mind this is replay, so I made about 5k give or take average per month. So some months were like 6, others were 4. I think one was as low as like 3.5 and one as high as 7ish. And that was in replay. I did 6 months of backtesting, as it says here. And then I went live on Sim. And now bear in mind, when I was doing the replay, I'd had few consecutive stop out days, which would be a 50-cent stop or $500 losing days. But I had many more 50-cent winning days or $500 winning days. When I went live in Sim, I had a strange phenomenon occurred, and that was I alternated between 50-cent winning days and 50-cent losing days, and not just 1 or 2 or 4, I think 10 or 12. and it just burnt me out. And then I think after like the 12th day, so 6 times back and forth from winning and losing, and basically breaking even or losing commissions, I just threw in the towel, did something stupid, and I blew up the sim account. And that was because I just couldn't figure out how I could go from 5k a month on replay to just back and forth and grinding and losing some commissions. And so what happened? Well, what happened was I lived the highs too intensely and was attracted to the winning days. And I remember I would always get headaches due to the euphoria of the winning days. And this was a big sign, and you got to look out for your cues. What do? Do you talk more about your winning days? Do you jump around? Does your mood change? Headaches was a big one for me. I'd get this really strong, potent headache because I was just so excited to have won, and attached too much value, self-value, and too short-term, looking at that win as having conquered something or won something. And of course that would set me up for the next day, where I would go in a bit gung-ho, flex the rules a little bit, or be a little bit impatient, and that would result in losses, and I wouldn't take the losses in my stride. I would get numb and shell-shocked after the losses. I'd literally feel like someone took a brick to my head. I would say to my partner, Margie, I would say, it feels like I've been hit over the head with a brick, because I went so high the day before with imagining what I would do with $500. You know, if I could just make $500 every day, and then I threw out all the rules unwittingly, not on purpose, but you know, relaxed the rules, and then lost. So then got it back together again. The next day went in humble, won, and then the headaches would come, and back and forth it would go. And so this is a common occurrence, I believe, to a greater or lesser extent, in the sense that you always see people on Twitter talking about their winning trades, and people talking about this, that, and the other, and then beating themselves up on losses. You don't want to beat them. You don't want to beat yourself up too much on the losses, and you don't want to reward yourself or puff up your chest with pride for the wins either. You want to stay really as close to the famous zero line that I keep mentioning as possible, and then just a hair above that zero line. So you want a hair of an air of confidence even when you're losing, and keep that same air of confidence even when you're winning. You don't want it to move up drastically when you're winning and tank when you're losing, because that's like a dog chasing its tail, and you just get tired and worn out, and then that has a negative effect on your edge. So what's the solution? You got to negate the highs and the lows. So when you're winning, you need to remind yourself that the wins won't last forever, and that you will lose. So there's no point getting excited about breaking to new highs and making more money. And for example, this month I made $790, and competing with month to month. Just know that this too shall pass. The highs, the run up in equity is going to stop, and you're going to experience drawdown in the future. Likewise, when you're going through the lows and you feel like jumping out the window, or hiding your losses from your spouse, or which is one of the reasons, by the way, why I do these videos as well. I don't hide anything from my partner, and because she is subscribed to the channel, and so we don't talk about trading. She just tunes into the videos, and that way we get to just experience our family life. And as I was saying, likewise with the lows, you don't want to stay in bed with the sheet over your head and say, oh God, I can't trade, it's the end of my life, I might as well quit. Which, as I mentioned in the last video, I did say something not quite as bad as that, but earlier this week, because of personal circumstances and, you know, the trading, I was in a bit of chop. That did cross my mind, and then I have systems in place to deal with that. So I have things that I've written to myself while I'm quote on a high, or while I'm experiencing a good run up in equity. I've got things that I've written to myself for when I'm stuck or I'm drawing down, you know. So you got to remember what you feel when you're low, when you're experiencing lows while you're high, and remember what you feel the vice versa, whatever I just said. So add highs to your lows and lows to your highs. Be aware of your thought patterns and the inherent imbalance that we all experience, then proactively counteract them. So some questions which you might want to ask yourself is, pay particular attention to, do you report wins more often than losses? What feelings go through your mind? How proud are you to report wins, and how embarrassed are you to report losses? The degree to which you've got any kind of pride to report wins, and any kind of conversely any kind of embarrassment or resistance to report losses, that's going to directly affect your edge, because it means you're running away from losses and you're running towards wins, and you can't win without losing in trading. You have to be able to embrace the losing period. So if you go back through my videos, you'll notice that not happily, but I will share. I've shared the whole journey, not every single day, but I've been unbiased in my selection. It just so happens that some videos will land on a win and other videos will land on losses, and multiple losses as well, you know, consecutive days. And if you go back, I would recommend you recording yourself as well, to see what kind of language, what kind of dialogue you're using, and how you're talking to yourself when you're winning, and how you're talking to yourself when you're losing. And the ideal, which we will never achieve because we're not robots, but the ideal would be for there to be no difference. But if you can reduce the difference, the volatility, the emotional variance, that's going to protect your edge and enable you to harness the simplest of market edges, because every edge in the market is simple. Every analytical edge in the market is simple, but relatively fragile, meaning that we need this balance and equanimity, and you get that by being present. So do you report wins more often than losses? Do you make plans to scale after a period of gains? Again, I'm guilty of this, but I catch myself real quickly when I do it, and I make sure I shake that feeling off, and I just say, look, you don't know what the next trade, next week, next month is going to bring. Focus on the process and scale accordingly if and when you reach those milestones. Do you feel like you'll never dig out of a slump hole when things aren't going well? Again, we mentioned that before. So to end this video, the degree to which you'll allow yourself, and it's you who's got to allow yourself to be consistent, is the degree to which you can dull the natural tendency to want to cling to good things, and I've put in quotations because they're not inherently good, and that's gains. Most people will think of gains as being good, and reject, repel bad things, which in this case in trading is going to be losses, and quite frankly in life, a losing situation, a winning situation. Learn to see the good in the bad and the bad in the good, the happy in the sad and the sad in the happy. You know, it's yin and yang, hot and cold, sweet and sour, good and bad. We need to stop going on the ride, stop going on the roller coaster ride, and then the degree to which you can do that will cultivate that presence of mind, being present, and then you will be able to have this objectivity. Objectivity is impossible if we have an agenda, and an agenda is only built by having a bias towards things we label that are good, and a bias against things that we label as bad. And if you really want to jump into this subject, I think I might have mentioned it in another video, a good resource that I used in 2014 was, let me think, what's it called? Meditation Shift. If you Google meditation shift or the TAD principle, space TAD space principle, then you'll find this meditation practice, which got me on the road to being present, and then ultimately the balance that's needed to iron out the emotional variance that inevitably ruins our trading edge. So that's it for now, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are interested in this sort of thing and watching me kick ass in the funded account in the near future. And that's it. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.